Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us on our sessions on archives and artificial intelligence, produced under the auspices of ICA's PCOM and with the support and assistance of the National Library and Archives of the UAE. I'm very pleased to be joined by a number of our team here looking at these topics. Hello Saman, nice to see you. Estelle, welcome, bienvenue. Moses, good to see you. And Claudia, nice to have you with us. Look, this session today, we'll be looking at one particular application of artificial intelligence, which might be used to actually promote archives and archival institutions and the archives collection to the general public. So it's a very interesting application. And to explore this, I had a chat with Mr. Tim Sears from an AI company, in fact, producing hardware, an AI platform company. But he was able to talk us through some interesting applications of current software and other online platforms that connected archival collections with artificial intelligence. So let's listen to what Tim Sears had to say and the demonstrations that he gave us. Well, hi, Tim, and thank you very much for joining us for this session on AI and archival practice. Tim, you're a senior software engineering leader at Groq. Groq is an AI infrastructure company specializing in building AI inference technology. And we're really delighted that you can join us for the discussion to share your insights on the current capabilities of AI technology and perhaps give us some advice on how we can prepare ourselves to get the most out of this rapidly emerging AI technology. Really keen to get stuck into a conversation with you, but maybe first you could give us a brief introduction to Groq and how Groq is contributing to the AI landscape.
Well, first of all, thanks, David. It's great to be with you, and it's great to try to help your audience today. I'll do my best. I'm working at a company called Groq, which your folks may or may not have heard of. Groq builds, it's really started life as a hardware company. Our founder worked at Google, and he worked on some of their custom-made chips, and he decided to start his own company to bake in certain design principles into AI hardware. And now we find ourselves with the world's fastest real-time AI inference technology. Inference is the activity where a model's already built and you're using it in some application. That's maybe juxtaposed with training, where you're trying to build a model with AI research experts and using data to build a model. And so our hardware is focused on AI inference, and it is today the world's fastest, and we're hoping to keep it that way and make some inroads into the hardware business. But at the same time, we are building out a platform. So we're making our hardware available with certain models running on it for the general public. And that's a new activity for us. It's very exciting to try to turn a hardware company into a platform company. So that's a big challenge here at Groq. Yeah, so that's who we are. We don't make the models. We don't train the models yet. We do a little bit of stuff like that, but that's not our main business. There's no Groq large language model. Our secret sauce is our LPU, our chip, which we call the language processing unit. And we're building everything on top of our chip, really hundreds of chips to serve certain models.
Yeah, and from what I've seen, it's moving at a lightning pace. And Tim, we're going to get into some discussion and demos, but from my experimentation with Groq so far, in preparation for our discussion today, it is stunning. It's quite amazing how transformational this technology is. And today, though, we really would like to focus on archival description. Now, I know I'm not talking to an archivist here, Tim, but I know you understand the nature of information.
Yeah.
So for archivists, description covers a lot more than producing like a simple catalogue of records that we might hold. At one level, description is a case of extracting or deriving metadata from a collection. And that is, we're interested in the provenance of the record. We're interested in the activity that record is documenting. We're interested in the people, the places, and the dates, etc., that are mentioned in those records. But what we're also interested in, and this is where AI, I think, can really help us, is we want to help researchers actually make sense of the records beyond the factual content. What's the sense of those records based on the context and the consequences of the activities documented? So there's quite a lot to unpack in all of that. And perhaps we should start at the beginning with metadata generation. So could you just give us a bit of a 30,000 feet tour of what tools and techniques should we archivists be looking for to peruse a whole heap of text to generate metadata? And how successful do you think this would be?
Well, I'm not an archivist, but I do, sitting here in Silicon Valley, I see your audience is perhaps sitting on a giant mountain of data. And so from that point of view, it might look similar to things we've looked at in the past. I think that, look, this entire area is moving super fast. And, the general public is having trouble keeping up. Business leaders are having trouble keeping up. So I think I can give some general outlines on how to keep up and start to think about the potential here. I think that things are moving fast and there is enormous potential. And, the people, not necessarily in your professional life, can actually help you keep track of what is coming out, what people are doing with it, just keeping your ears open broadly to see which industries things are happening in. And then, I think a little bit of imagination, but hopefully not too much imagination, is required to figure out how to apply it in, your particular domain, whatever domain somebody might be interested in. I could give you one quick example just to get the ball rolling on how to see how easy it is to sort of try to figure out what's happening in the space. If you don't mind, I'll just do a quick demo of Groq's LLM. We built a chat bot on top of our system. I can show you that real quick. Does that sound good?
Sure, please do.
All right.
Yep, that's good. We can see that.
Okay, so what we're looking at here is a chat bot powered by Groq, somewhat like ChatGPT. Lots of folks are familiar with that, and other chat bots. There's actually a number of providers out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're doing is we have several models available. You can see we have 4 different models to choose from. Here I've chosen Llama 3 70 billion parameter model. This was released by Meta, formerly known as Facebook, some months ago, and they're in the process of updating their model and releasing new versions of it. And this is something that is open source. In other words, you can actually get this model and run it on your own hardware, which is what we did. In our case, so I actually ran a query earlier, which you can see. I'll rerun that actually here. I'm going to copy that and rerun it so you can see how fast it is. Okay, so I'm about to hit enter, and that answer is done. So Groq, we're very proud of our speed here, but I think for your audience, whether it's fast or slow, it's interested in the quality of the model and what these models can do. So I asked the question, what do National Archivists do? And then this gives you Llama 3's take on what that job function is. It's really kind of amazing what these models can do. They can answer questions of general, about general knowledge, something like what you might find, right? Almost like writing a Wikipedia article for you at the time. This is based simply on the data that was embedded in the model at training. But models like this can also tap databases and be fed with data from databases. You might hear about applications like RAG, retrieval augmented generation, where extra information is fed in with your question so that the LLM, the large language model, which is great at expository style oriented tasks, can create the answer by chewing on the facts that are necessary there. So I think that's certainly one place to start. There are many other models out there nowadays that are dealing with different modalities. When we talk about modalities here, we're talking about putting text in and getting text out. That's one modality. There are examples of models that where you can put in a picture and it will write a description of the picture. That's something that is useful in e-commerce, where people are supporting new products and they want to sell them over, say, a website. When they upload a picture to the database, they want to have a description of that so that it could be checked for certain adherence to policy. maybe other metadata around that. So that's something that actually commercial companies will drive progress on, and we're actually working on such things in the lab, back in the lab here, and we are rolling that sort of stuff out. I could imagine models like that being directly useful for archivists, whether it's taking data in and summarizing documents that you already have digitized, hopefully, or taking images in and summarizing what's in those images. Now you have a new source of data that can be accessed for users, or that could even be built so it's done on the fly. You're not necessarily doing it until the request comes in.
This yeah, and it really is incredible that the speed and the power and the breadth of what these tools can do with some of the subtleties of looking at content in archives. Often we might want to load a whole set of archival material into an LLM like this and have it produce, metadata, descriptive information about it.
Right.
But we're using the word inference, today, obviously, and this is an area that you specialize in. Are these tools very good at detecting, say, offensive content or content that might be potentially unsuitable for one audience but suitable for another? Or another area we're interested in is we're dealing a lot with, say, the way that an Indigenous community in a nation state might interpret a set of information versus a non-Indigenous community. And this is particularly an issue in post-colonial or settler communities like the United States, like Australia, Canada, etc.
Yeah.
Have you seen any developments where these sort of products are able to pick up on those sorts of aspects of text?
I think that it's certainly an area of concern and an area of great of development where folks are trying to figure out how to make sure that when we deploy these models, they're used for good, not evil, you could say, as a slogan. And it's a difficult area. I think when you're if you're an AI specialist and you're given a pile of data and you're given a performance criteria, the folks have become very good at making these things accurate to some degree of some measure of accuracy. So it depends on what and they do this by minimizing an objective function, to use a technical term. And so what goes into your objective function, right? This is something that is that AI researchers need to think about in order to get accuracy, but they also now know they need to put protections in there. And so you do see this type of effort really happening at training time. So by the time the model is deployed and we're using it for a particular purpose, there's not as much that you can do. This sort of thinking needs to go in at training time. There are, of course, some things you can do after the fact. You can have more than one model involved. Maybe one model just spits out the facts and another model reviews the set of information according to some other criteria, maybe some sort of subjective or some policy related value. So I can see that as we build out new systems, putting models together for special purposes could do it. Then you could build one model and just not have to worry about that sort of stuff, and that may be a big enough effort. And then you have other models that are involved in the shaping of the story that comes out.
All right. And so when you talk about models, this comes at a practical sense. This comes down to, say, a body of archivists, developing policies on these things, developing a policy on offensive content or sensitive content, cultural sensitivities. As we develop those policies, then those models rely on us to gather some content which provide examples of those sort of policies, or what's the process involved in developing those models? How much work is involved? Give us a bit of a practical feel to it.
Well, I think one of the interesting things about LLMs is that the degree of sophistication of these models allows you to be quite flexible in how you provide the data. Maybe a few years ago, you would have had to provide examples of text with labels of good and bad. I think you can kind of describe to an LLM what sort of attitude you'd like it to adopt, and they're quite adept at adhering to that. Now, I don't know that that gets rid of all the risk, because when you put highly capable models out there and people can do anything they want with it, it's pretty hard to predict whether it will always adhere to a policy. So I would say that we can get you a proof of concept quite easily, but to getting to perfection, it's not obvious to me how much work it would take. I do believe that you can get very close. And as somebody that's worked in software, I think the key to understanding how software improves is that it's based on iteration. You need to find a safe place where the model can make a mistake and not cause some publicity problem for whoever is using it, and then can be iterated and deployed. So very often you'll see companies using models. I just read an article about a large retailer that is putting a large language model into the hands of their store employees to answer questions about their policies and solve customer problems. I'm sure they would love to put that into their customers' hands, but they're probably going to use employees to dog food it, if you will.
Okay, all right, that's really interesting. And I guess the other thing about this is that the description changes all the time as well. When often in archives, it's not a question of describing a collection and then leaving that way for the next 20, 30 years, because social values change quite a bit every year. So things that were not offensive, which were commonplace 20 years ago, we might find distasteful today. And it occurs to me that taking advantage of these rapid technologies means that we can constantly keep our descriptions up to date with present day values in terms of what is and isn't acceptable, or what isn't interesting to people. I mean, is that something that we should be thinking about as well? That I don't know, how do we constantly stay on top of this, and do we have to keep refreshing models all the time to reflect the changing values of society?
I think if you can't predict what the values will be, that's likely to be the case. I think it probably makes sense to leave the raw data raw, whether it's offensive or not. I was just reading recently in the history of the Civil War, and one of the top generals was referring to the slavery problem and how to handle it. And the victims of the slavery problem did not come out nicely in his description of, he wrote these letters to the president, and it was not pretty. And but that's history. And so I think that we probably ought to recognize that. Now, when you're presenting that information to the public, you have a range of choices that you could apply to tell that story. So, I think large language models today could actually do a pretty good job of reflecting those sensitivities, with some human oversight.
All right, look, this is really good. It's very good to hear this. Maybe we can jump into, because I know there's another capability I'm really keen on having a look at and perhaps doing a live demo. And this goes to I suppose the order of what we're talking about now. It's that sense making. It's beyond the factual content of what is the higher meaning behind this. And in terms of sense making of archival collections, in archives, we often develop finding aids, which summarize the key attributes of a collection and describe the meaning and the usefulness of an aggregation of records. So I'm interested in talking to you about a particular AI technique, which is around now, which can provide this introductory level of assistance to members of the public who are trying to navigate their way through the archives.
So, David, thank you for sharing the information with me about some of the information that's available in the Australian Archive. And I thought what would be fun and interesting and thought-provoking is to create a bot that would allow somebody to talk to an AI bot about the archives in Australia. And
actually, Tim, maybe I should jump in here as well and just explain where I got this from. So you and I had a chat before recording the session today about this capability. And so I just went to the website of the National Archives of Australia and just scraped without any preparation or processing of the text. I scraped some text off that publicly accessible website, which introduces highlights of the collection of the archives. And I just sent that as a big lump of text to you. And so back to you, Tim, and tell us some of the magic that you were able to weave with that text.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is actually take this information that David kindly shared and create a chatbot. But this one will be multimodal. This will actually use an LLM, just as we saw in the earlier demo. We'll also use a voice-in model, a speech-to-text model. That's another modality, speech-to-text. And then it will reply, that will feed the question into the LLM. It will use the information that's supplied, and it will actually speak back. And you'll be surprised at how, well, I won't say anymore. Let's see how it comes out. All right, so I'll just scroll through here so you can see that what David has sent us is information about what types of records from the intelligence community are held in the National Archives of Australia, and how do you access that type of information? Okay, now this information that he's provided is about 8 pages of text, and it does include hyperlinks, but none of the deeper linking is being done here. It's quite surfacey at this point. By the way, there's even some other pictures in here which we're not going to be able to use, but you can see that there's quite a bit of information about the bodies of the records. And so let's see how that comes out. I'm going to use something called VAPI, which is a service that it's quite easy to access. And they specialize in helping people build voice bots, and you can build them with web programming, quite simple web program actually, or they have something even simpler, which is called no code solutions. You can build one on their website. It's somewhat limited in capabilities, but perfectly good for what we're trying to accomplish. And so I've made an Aussie archivist bot, and I've selected a model. Of course, I chose Groq, and then I've given it this voice bot a greeting to say to us so that we know we've connected. And I have copy pasted all of the information that David provided, really with no editing. I didn't do a lot of work here, but it grabbed the text, and then I gave it a little bit of extra. I told it something about its personality and what its goals are. And so I said, you are Miranda, an archive at the Australian National Archives. Your role is to help the general public and researchers to learn about the materials available at the archives. You're friendly and helpful, but very professional. Keep your answers short and conversational, because we're in voice. You don't want it reading Wikipedia to you. It doesn't work very nicely. So, and then I've selected, I even managed to find a voice provider, which VAPI helps us connect to. The transcriptions provided by DeepGram. Those are another company. And then the voice is actually from this particular company, and they have a variety of voices you can choose. And there's lots of choices on how to build this. So we just picked a few and got rolling. And so I'll just test this out, and hopefully you can hear it.
Welcome to the National Archives of Australia. My name is Miranda. How can I help you today?
How does somebody find out if they have an ASIO file?
HCR files are records created by the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation, ASIO, during the Cold War era. They contain information about individuals and organisations that were of interest to ASIO at the time. To find out if you have an HCR file, you can submit a request to the National Archives of Australia. You'll need to provide some personal information, such as your full name, date of birth, and any alias you may have used. You can submit your request online or by mail. We'll then check our records to see if an HCR file exists in your name. If we find one, we'll let you know and provide you with access to the file, unless it's still classified for security reasons. Keep in mind that not everyone who is of interest to ASIO during that time period
Excuse me,
will
can
have
I
an
ask you another
HCR.
question?
Please go ahead and ask your question. I'm here to help.
Okay, I just did that to show. I'm going to end the call. I just wanted to show you that conversational AI is more than just sending text into an LLM. It involves actually creating something that is responsive and in the sense that we can interrupt it and so forth. So, so there's a lot to it, but it's actually being made quite easy. This we built in just a few minutes. I actually was able to share a link with you. I don't know if you received that.
You did.
You can actually create the bot and give it a try yourself if you like.
Yeah, no, you did. You gave me a link and I've put it on my phone here. So I simply tap on that little icon. I get the circle there, and let's see if I can fire it up at my end. Oh, wants to use my microphone.
Welcome to the National Archives of Australia. My name is Miranda. How can I help you today?
Hi, Miranda. Look, I'm interested in finding out if you have any records to do with espionage in Australia.
Fascinating topic. Yes, we do have records related to espionage in Australia. The National Archives holds a significant collection of records from various Australian intelligence and security agencies, including the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation, ACO, the Commonwealth Investigation Service, and others.
Have you got
We have records
anything?
on
Have you got a record about any defections of Soviet spies that defected to Australia?
We do have records related to Soviet spies who defected to Australia. One notable example is the case of Vladimir Petrov, a Soviet diplomat who defected to Australia in 1954. We have records from the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation, ASIO, related to his defection, including correspondence files and intelligence reports.
Can I come
Would
in
you
tomorrow?
like me to help you access?
Yeah, can I come in tomorrow and have a look at them?
I'd be happy to help you access those records. However, I need to check their availability and ensure they're not restricted or closed due to sensitivity or privacy reasons. Can you please come back tomorrow and I'll do my best to have the records ready for you.
That's
Please
fantastic,
allow me
Miranda.
to check their availability.
Thanks, Miranda. Thanks for your help. You've been very helpful.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure to assist you. I'm glad I could help. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have any more questions or need further assistance. I'll see you tomorrow when you come to access the records.
All right, Tim, I've said goodbye to Miranda there. And just to be clear, all of that is based only on that unedited text, which we dropped into that screen that you just showed us there on the VAPI interface.
Yeah, I think that's basically correct. You've got well, of course, Llama 3 has an innate capability to understand and process information. So that's the baseline. And then on top of that, it's been trained to respond to what's called a system prompt. And in the system prompt, we put some information on how to behave and what the role is and what the goal is, but also some background information. And on every request that you enter, it reuses that information. There are other techniques to achieve a similar result. I mentioned RAG earlier. That's another way. There's also fine tuning of models that can happen. But I think the key point is, like, we really didn't do a lot of work here to create something that's plausible. And then it becomes a question of how do you iterate to get to a highly polished product that you'd want to use with your with the public. It's super interesting, the alignment of that use case with a call center for, say, a phone company or a bank. This stuff is happening, and so it's being worked on very actively right now. So a lot of folks are interested in voice bots for call center type applications.
And I'm also interested in this, that it opens it up to people with disabilities, people with determination that may not find it convenient to use a traditional archival description, which is a very sort of, it can be hard to penetrate sometimes, an archival description document because of, all the codes and the hierarchy that we use, etc.
Right.
And of course, if you are visually impaired or even, have other impairments, this sort of technology really opens it up to make it a lot more accessible to people.
I think that's a great point. I mean, if you go back to the LLM, the chatbot that we looked at originally, you can ask it, why is the sky blue? And you can get all the mathematical equations that explain Rayleigh scattering. Or you can say, explain it like I'm a 5-year-old, and you will get a very different answer. So these models are quite good at adapting to that with very little prompting on our part. So that makes them very, very attractive. It means that you can build a proof of concept super fast.
Which brings us back to these the parallel, there's this parallel provenance concept about different cultural starting points to interpret collections in different ways. And so we can also fold those sorts of differences into, just as I've understood it from this demo, Tim, just by adding more text that explains these different things, then we can start to incorporate more and more world views into how we explain the collection to people and how we guide them as to what they should be doing next. Yeah,
and you can make sure that the responses match their cultural norms, don't offend them. Like thinking about showing, say, images from Australia. I lived in Australia, and I was aware there was some cultural sensitivities about viewing certain images of people from the past. So you can, but maybe Aboriginal folks want to see pictures of Australia from the past, but not necessarily have to worry about, breaking taboos.
Exactly. And now what about, of course, we're having this discussion in English, and we're all aware that a lot of this technology coming out of Silicon Valley is very Anglo-centric. What sort of possibilities are opening up to enable this to operate in other languages other than English?
Well, I mean, actually, that's being solved as we go. All these models are very interesting. They work on the basis of tokens, and they have a very large token space that they operate in. Sorry for the jargon, but essentially their tokens represent parts of words. And it's just actually easier for the AI specialists to train one big model that can use all of the tokens from an English corpus of data, as well as French and German and Arabic and Spanish. And so these models are often, and really almost by default these days, built with multilingual capability. Now they vary in their outcome on these languages because the data for different languages is, it varies in terms of the amount of data, and that's actually very important for training the models. But the models actually benefit from having as much data as possible, and the cross-language aspect of these models is baked in from the start. So something like Llama 3, you can request it to answer in French, or Spanish, or German, or Arabic, and that capability is getting better and better, or Chinese, Japanese, it goes on. So usually the models, when they're, especially open source models, well, all the models will tell you something about their language capability, and almost all of them have the ability to render an answer in any of the number of supported languages.
All right. Well, look, this is amazing. This has been a really great curtain raiser for me on the world of AI and where we're up to at the moment. As you know, Tim, because you create some, your industry is creating so much hype at the moment, but it's great to talk to you to actually see the realities of it. And that demo we had just now, how accessible actually it can be to people like me who are working in the archival profession or working in an archival institution. Actually, can I just take that one step further? A lot of us across the world in our international community, we operate in quite low resourced environments. We don't have millions of dollars or even thousands of dollars to invest in this. How expensive or inexpensive can it be to get on board with this technology? For example, to use that VAPI model that we just used then, how much would that cost if somebody wanted to use that?
Yeah, okay, great question. So I think, to your question about getting involved, a couple things. One is the resources, and I'll talk about that in a second. I would say the thing that amazes me, as somebody that's been at it for a while, is it's getting more accessible. The level of these models are amazing, but you don't need to be, an AI researcher to use them. Actually, normal programmers, hobbyists, students even can build amazing applications with, in a very short period of time. So I think if we can create the space for people to do that, the models are very accessible. Many of these models, for example, you saw the VAPI model, you can go there and sign up and build a proof of concept basically for free. They give you a small amount to start. To use Groq right now, it's free. It will be a charge at some point soon. We're rolling out a platform, but it's 79 cents, I think, for Llama 3. It's 79 cents per million tokens. We'd have to write, several editions of War and Peace before you paid $1. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's very low cost. There are other models involved there were speech to text, which is quite inexpensive, and the speech synthesis, which is probably the most expensive piece there. And there are options there to do it quite cheap as well. So there can be a cost. The ease of building these things, we saw a no-code solution, but if you wanted to build something customized, which you could easily run into, really is the cost of web development these days. It's thinking about web developers and what they cost. These folks know how to use APIs, and putting these APIs together is quite easy for web developers, and you can get some very exciting results there. Remind me the other part of your question, actually.
Well, so I guess so really it could be get started on this AI journey for hundreds of dollars, not thousands of dollars. I mean, it seems to me that if you're paying on a consumption sort of model where you can use that freely available interface to load up material, then on a consumption basis, you could be providing a service for several $100s.
I think that's right. In terms of operating that cost, a proof of concept will be very, very low cost. Your development time will end up being your largest expense, and then deploying it, you can start to optimize once you're ready to deploy and find less expensive models. I would say the cost in our business, and Groq is part of driving the cost down. We're a very big part of driving the cost down, actually. And so, I wouldn't let cost be a hurdle. And I wouldn't let clock time be a hurdle. This is not the kind of thing where you should expect something in 2 years. You should expect it in 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months.
Yeah.
That's the type of time frame to at least get your feet wet in this space.
So on that then, and I think this is very exciting for us as archivists as well, for our profession, because for me, I think this is opening up, if you like, a new agenda for the professional archivist to really get in there, understand these tools, and take advantage of these tools. The principal purpose of an archivist is to connect somebody, an individual out there in the public, to connect them with something that we hold in the archives in a way that's going to change their life for the better. I mean, this is the altruistic, and these tools seem to me to open up a wealth of new possibilities to do that. So nobody watching this should be worried that they're going to be done out of a job by AI. I think that AI technology is adding a whole new power to the way that we conduct our profession. And on that, I'm just really interested in some thoughts from you for archivists who are watching this. What do you think we should be doing for our professional development, to prepare ourselves for the future, for emerging technology? What are some tips that you can give us to manage our own professional development?
I think, well, first of all, it's a lot of folks in a lot of industries, called the archives an industry, are looking at this technology. Almost everybody is seeing it as transformative in some respect. I was really heartened by your message that this could broaden access to the archives. There's a lot of information in the archives, and most people don't know it's there. Perhaps it could enrich their lives in some day. So democratizing access and meeting people where they are, rather than having it solely be for research experts who have to learn, the lingo and the methods of accessing. This could be a huge acceleration in terms of making archives relevant to society. So I think that's certainly true. In terms of professional advice, I mean, one of the things that's been super interesting to me, just in my personal development, is participating in hackathons. And our company's been a sponsor at hackathons. And it is just amazing. You get young folks showing up, you give them some API access, you give them a unique source of data, perhaps, that they didn't know about or have ready access to before. And it's amazing what they will build. A few months ago, as we were rolling out our platform, I decided to try to build some demos on our Groq system. And I actually built a few, and I was kind of happy about that outcome. But quickly I realized that the 200, and I think it's about 250,000 developers and that have downloaded API keys from Groq are going to have way more ideas. So I hardly do any demos that are not partner that don't have partner content of some kind in there, because the creativity, opening up the doors and letting people in, will give you an amazing number of ideas.
This has been a really, really interesting discussion, and I'm so grateful for your time, Tim, and for Groq to make you available to do this talk for us. Very interested to follow, Groq and where it's headed. And look, I appreciate that you haven't done a big sales job just on Groq either. You've told us about what's going on across the whole AI landscape, and I think that's really generous of you. So thank you so much, Tim. This has been a really great discussion.
Thank you, David. Pleasure.
Back. Well, that really was quite an eye-opener. I certainly really enjoyed having that discussion with Tim, and that presentation in particular of that VAPI product with the human voice, which he kindly came up with an Australian accent, in fact, just to make me feel more at home as we demonstrated that. I thought was quite fascinating. But let's go around the group. Claudia, perhaps we could hear first from you. What were your key reactions to seeing that presentation?
Gracias. Pues sin duda el uso de la inteligencia artificial va a ser de gran utilidad. Como lo pudimos ver en la presentación, las interfaces conversacionales, en el caso de los chatbots o de los asistentes virtuales ya con voz, que van a estar impulsados por inteligencia artificial, pueden facilitar la navegación en colecciones de archivos mediante interacciones conversacionales que van a responder a preguntas y que van a permitir ir guiando a los usuarios hacia la información de manera más precisa. Esto sin duda pues va a acercar los archivos a los usuarios y también va a permitir que se pueda llevar a cabo en un lenguaje mucho más amable y comprensible para que podamos llegar a un mayor número de usuarios y hacer una gran difusión de nuestros archivos.
Thank you. Moises?
Hi, David. So again, it's great to be here. I'm excited to talk about this topic. I think this topic, how to make the archives more accessible, how to use these methods. For me, one of the methods mentioned was the RAG, or retrieved augment. The retrieved augmented generation. Yes, that is kind of a fine tuning of those sources. So we can put here specific sources from the archives and have more precise results, more precise outputs. And I think this is, one of the ways we can use AI more efficient.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because one of the risks that we face when we use these large language models is that because they're based on very generic information, the risk is that they'll produce inaccurate information. But I agree, the idea that you have that the RAG approach, where you superimpose factual information as a source of verified information, really does strengthen the accuracy and veracity. Now, I found that very interesting.
And
yes.
Try to avoid hallucinations also in the outputs.
Exactly. Yes. No, very interesting. Estelle.
Bon, qu'est-ce que je dirais? Je dis déjà que nous, on découvre l'intelligence artificielle et il faut dire que ça semble améliorer le travail des archivistes et même la découverte des archives. Ça semble également, on va dire, ça semble améliorer le travail des archivistes pour retrouver l'information. Ça semble plus facile. Donc, c'est une technologie à développer et à faire comprendre aux différents professionnels qui exercent dans le domaine et qui éprouvent énormément de soucis pour pouvoir traiter les documents. Donc, c'est un outil assez facile, assez important pour nous faciliter la tâche au quotidien. Voilà.
Thank you. And Saman, your thoughts?
I think it's a very interesting and important topic, especially in the geography that I come from, using LLMs, and they're already sophisticated models, but the intermingling of LLMs into RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation. And I think if there's, as Tim mentioned, that if there's careful training of these models and more specific approaches of what the organization can really help to provide more visibility to the archives and provide more audience to the archives, and that is something which is very interesting, and also because we're based in different geographies, the cost is always a factor in the way we work and function in the archival sector. And currently they are available for free and to use as proof of concepts. It's something very, very interesting that I found, and which really helps and allow to experiment with the way we are moving forward by using LLMs and things like that, and making information less generic and more reliable by feeding in more specific in data and information about a specific organization. I found these points extremely interesting, and that's something that we can explore continuously and contextualize to what we need and what we're looking for through these very sophisticated models and technologies.
Look, thank you very much, all of you, for those reactions to that presentation. And yes, and I can but agree. I think it's been quite an eye-opener, as we've all been saying, that it feels like these technologies are becoming more accessible and available at a reasonably low entry cost. I hope that the costs are coming down, as Tim was telling us during his presentation. And perhaps to your point, Saman, as well, we'll put those further references, the URLs and resources up on the screen so that our viewers will be able to follow up on any of those links or further reading, just to inform ourselves a little bit more about these technologies and what they might offer to us in our work and to our institutions. So once again, thank you everyone for those insights and those observations. And to all of our viewers, look forward to seeing you again at the next of our sessions on AI and archival practice. Thank you.